Psychological safety is less to do with the individual, more to do with the environment and creating an awareness of what's happening in the communication. So what are the subtle things that are going on so that we can modulate the way that we communicate based on a person's response to it. So we're looking them figuratively, if not literally, in the eye, and we're gauging how they respond to what we're doing.
Hey everyone, it's Amy Lynn Durham, and you're listening to Create Magic at Work. Create Magic at Work is on a mission to equip senior leaders with tools they need to be a true quantum leader and actually understand what that means. Improve employee engagement, retain top talent, and transform your workplace culture to have less drama and stress. So let's start making magic. Hey everyone, welcome to Create Magic at Work. I'm so excited today because we are going to get into a topic that we've sort of peppered into a lot of episodes and conversations throughout the past, it's been 3.5 years that Create Magic at Work has been running. So thank you so much to the global community that listens to the show. I have Philip Baer here. And let me tell you a little bit about Philip. Through a combination of mediation, education, consulting, counseling, and coaching, Philip supports businesses, organizations, and families by designing and implementing safety programs that systematically eliminate sources of stress and tension between people. How cool is that, to systematically eliminate sources of stress? Philip's Safe to Be training program is the first commercially available psychological safety program to combine an executive coaching component with an app-based approach. Organization-wide distribution of the app ensures that every leader, employee, and community member has been empowered with education and tools necessary for cultivating emotional safety in their work and community. Since 2022, Philip has been working as a mediator while continuing to provide behavioral loops counseling. So he has a big background in effective communication, and we're going to go into the psychological safety in the workplace component as well. In 2015, Philip published Learning to Love, a guide to unconditional acceptance and loving. He's the creator and developer of a suite of transformative techniques and tools that includes the Binome Map, Philip's Rule, and the Compassion Map. Ooh, I can't wait to hear about the Compassion Map, because Create Magic at Work is all about leading with wisdom and compassion, making decisions from that space, and learning to put your ego aside while you're doing that. So, Philip, welcome to Create Magic at Work, and thank you for being here.
I feel honored to be here. Thanks, Amy.
Yeah, it's great to have you. I'm so excited. We actually met in a business networking group, and I was like, you have to be on the show to speak to the Create Magic at Work community. So is there anything else you want to share about yourself?
I was listening to all that, and it's like, that is so comprehensive. There's a lot of stuff. I'm not going to add anything more.
Awesome. So obviously I always want to dive right in. It's one of my, it's how I do things. We have talked a lot about psychological safety in the workplace on Create Magic at Work, but we've never had a dedicated episode about it. And so I want to start right there. We've mentioned psychological safety, but I don't think we've really unpacked the layers of what is that in the workplace? When I first started hearing about psychological safety was probably in 2016 at an executive leadership meeting. There was a speaker, and I heard Google had coined the term. So tell us, what's psychological safety in the workplace, and why do we need it? And is that true? Did Google coin that term?
That's the first that I've heard about that. That is
okay.
That's fascinating to hear. So not everyone uses the same definition of psychological safety, but I'm coming at it from an organic way. And I ask myself, what's physical safety? And how do we know when a person's not safe? And we know that a person's not safe because our bodies evolved in a way, our nervous systems evolved to respond to threats by going into either fight state or flight state or freeze state. So psychological safety, if you're looking from that direction, is anything that causes a person to go into fight, flight, or freeze when there's no imminent physical threat. Is that not cool? That's keep it super easy. And then when you're looking at what's going on for people within a workplace or an organization, what you'll notice is that they're going into fight, flight, or freeze when they're exposed to other people who are doing things like blaming or criticizing or ignoring their physical and emotional boundaries. Or those are examples that I put into the fight category, that people's fight responses cause other people to feel threatened. People's flight responses can also, so someone walking away from you, running away from you, or deceiving or lying or ghosting you, all of those can be triggers. And for me, that's where we get the scope to do something about psychological safety, because we can identify with relative ease whether any of these behaviors are occurring, and we can tag them as hazards. And we can look at the impact that they're having on people, and we can educate the people in the workforce that if these things are happening, look around and see if it's having a negative impact, if it's causing other people to go into fight, flight, or freeze responses. And the reason we're most concerned about this fight, flight, and freeze is because there's a phenomenon associated with it that is the amygdala hijack. And what it means is that a person's ability to reason and to relate gets compromised. Part of the brain shuts down, or part of the brain takes over other parts of the brain. And so what you have is a workforce who are not functioning at full capacity. They're functioning at a significantly lowered capacity. And their concern is not about getting the work done. Their concern is getting their self-esteem back up to a level where they can function and feeling less threatened by the people who are treating them in a way that's causing them to feel elevated stress.
Yeah. We can use different language for it, but I'm just thinking you're from the spiritual intelligence lens, you are describing ego versus higher self. And how can we operate from our higher self if our ego's triggered or if our amygdala is hijacked? We're in that fight, flight, or freeze. And now we've restricted ourselves from any other options than those three. Or I think the other one I've heard is like fawn, fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. So being able to, one, notice when I'm feeling triggered and work through that so I can open up the parts of my brain that can access more creative possibilities. That's the productivity piece in the workplace, right? Here's my question. I'm going to use myself as an example. I'm a very direct, I think I am anyway. Maybe I need a 360 assessment on me. Oh, I'm a very direct communicator and I'm a very engaged communicator. So when I have a point, I'm doing it overly right now with you if anyone sees the video. If I have a point I want to make, I'm moving my hands and my voice is like, "Philip, I need you to understand this. Like this, I'm engaged, I'm direct. You need to improve or or I really want to get my point across. So my voice is like this and this." And so if I'm communicating, I've noticed self-awareness wise, if I'm communicating with someone that is maybe not as engaged or direct, I can trigger something within them that causes the flight reaction because they're like, it feels like a threat. When really I'm like, no, no, I'm just super passionate, right? What's the fine line between being my authentic self when I'm interacting with you and also being self-aware that I might be interacting with someone that I'm triggering the flight reaction?
So we can look at it from a simple perspective, and that's that when somebody feels threatened, certain hormones, stress hormones, cortisol, norepinephrine, and some others get released. So involuntarily, they're having a response to you. And culturally, not everybody's going to have that same response. I lived in Israel for 14 years, and over there, the way that you're talking or describing talking is perfectly normal conversation. Whereas where I'm living right now in the Vancouver area, that's terrifying for people to interact a lot of the time in the way that you're describing. It doesn't pose the same threat to everyone. The place where we get to work with that is having the safety to be able to talk about what a person's experiencing so that we can, and you kind of flagged the word compassion, so that we can compassionately communicate and so that we can have that discussion about what my intention was, not just how I came across. But I want to be able to hear from the person, like, are you perceiving me as threatening? Because if so, I don't have to come across in this way necessarily. Or maybe there's something that we can negotiate between us that'll make the communication safe and comfortable for both of us.
Yeah, because if someone's that engaged, direct, passionate communicator talking to someone that and they trigger the flight and then the person flees, then that's going to trigger the engaged, passionate communicator even more because it's like, they left, come back. You didn't hear my point. Right.
Exactly. And we see that in relationship with that escalation. Like I know in my romantic relationships in particular, that there was always something that myself and my partner, and it didn't matter who the partner was, would do. And then the other person's response to it would cause another response. And we just watch things continuing to escalate. And part of the gift of doing this psychological safety internal work is being able to identify that escalation right at the beginning and to cap it so it never proceeds. And we can learn to do that.
I love that. What are some things that we can do to create true psychological safety in the workplace? And why is that important?
Okay, so everything rests on an education process to start with, because we need people to become aware of what's going on between them and what's going on for them. So one thing, for example, that is the most important piece is to be able to recognize when I'm triggered. And then to be able to go through a process of asking, where's the threat coming from? Is it a physical threat? Am I in imminent physical danger? Because my nervous system's telling me I am. One of the screw ups of evolution is that our nervous system didn't evolve a different response system for non physical threats. And for physical threats, it's all the same response system. So if I can determine that there's no imminent physical threat, then I know that the threat appears to be coming from outside of me, but it's really something that's going on inside my head. And it has to do with the history of things that I ran into that represent emotional threats to me. In order to understand what a psychological or emotional threat is, we need to be able to go into the best place that we can ever find this information is in something called the still face experiment.
Say that again. The what experiment?
Still, Still, where a parent and a child, a 1-year-old child, are brought into a laboratory and the researchers are hiding behind a one-way mirror. And the instruction is for the parent to engage with the child until they hear a rap on the one-way mirror and then to stop engaging with the child. And what we see is that within seconds, nanoseconds, the child realizes that status of connection has just vanished because the parent's no longer giving them feedback. And they'll try to re-engage their parent, but the parent's under instructions not to re-engage. And what we get to see is that within like under 2 minutes, the child is freaking. They're screeching, they're squealing, they're crying, they're having this most terrible experience. And every single one of us experienced that because none of our parents were able to be there for us continuously. So we have this trauma of disconnection that it started occurring so early that it's not even memory in the normal parts of our brain because we couldn't use words to put that memory into the brain. So it's cellular memory. It doesn't even have words associated with it. But what it's sensitive to is withdrawal of another person. So anytime there's a gap between me and another person, I go back to being a 1-month-old or a 1-year-old, and I feel that same pain that I can't get the connection. Now, if you and I were sitting across the table and one of us stopped giving feedback to the other, like that'd be a response because it would feel weird, it would feel uncomfortable. But for the baby, it's a life or death situation because they have no sense of time. So they've got no way of knowing that in 2 minutes or 5 minutes or 10 minutes, the parent will re-engage. They think they're going to die because they're in the moment. Like if the parent's not reacting now, they never will. And so Like, it's a really big deal. And every time something psychologically unsafe happens, like if something physically unsafe happens, we can see the wounds on our body. We can see cuts. We can see scrapes. We can see blood flowing. We can see bruises. Emotionally, we get launched back to being that 1 week old or 1 month old who's terrified that we'll never be connected again. And it's happening when someone says something crappy to us or uses sarcasm or implies in some way that we're not good enough. That'll launch us back over there. So what we can do is to recognize that the threat's coming inside from inside us. If it's not imminent physical, it's coming inside. And about 99% of the time, it has to do with us having that experience of something terrible is going to happen because I can't connect again. I'm in that state where I don't have the power to reconnect. Someone said something, inferred something, implied something, communicated something that tells me they don't respect me or I'm not lovable. And that's scary.
Hey everyone, Amy here. Let's talk about work realities for a second. Whether you're dealing with a tough boss, struggling with team miscommunication, feeling stuck in decision making, let's be real, work drama exists and it's exhausting, but it doesn't have to be this way. At Create Magic at Work, we help leaders like you cut through the chaos, build next level communication skills, and make better, faster decisions without the stress spiral. Whether you're leading a team or just trying to keep your sanity at work, we've got your back. We coach executives and teams like yours to develop interpersonal savvy, drive engagement, and bring your vision and purpose to life so work actually feels energizing again. Imagine that. More engagement, more productivity, less drama. Our executive coaching team has been in your shoes. We've led teams, navigated workplace challenges, and know what it takes to help you succeed and achieve your goals. Real experience, real talk, and real results. If you're thinking, yes, Amy, we need this at my work, then let's talk. Click the link in the show notes and let us help you and your teams become a high-performing, engaged, and productive force of clarity and calm. I'll see you in the Zoom room. Let's throw the stress and drama out the window. Click on the link in the show notes. So if I'm a leader with a team in the workplace and I've got to get stuff done and I've got to hit my goals, and I'm aware that if I create psychological safety at a larger percentage of time, my productivity will increase. How do I do that dance of understanding that I need to give candid feedback and I need to create psychological safety while I'm doing it? Because I feel like there's a lot of great leaders that have really great intentions, and it can be hard to know every unique individual that you're speaking with. How am I approaching this in a way to create psychological safety? Oh, and by the way, I'm super busy. I'm just, maybe this leader's super busy. I'm super busy. And I've got to drive these goals for whatever company I'm working for. How do we do that dance?
So it's a team sport. Psychological safety is less to do with the individual, more to do with the environment and creating an awareness of what's happening in the communication. So what are the subtle things that are going on so that we can modulate the way that we communicate based on a person's response to it. So we're looking them figuratively, if not literally, in the eye, and we're gauging how they respond to what we're doing. Because it's not just what I'm saying, it's how I'm saying it, and not just the words that I'm using, but the tone and the inflection and all of these different pieces of communication. So I need to be self-aware enough to recognize when someone is responding in a way that's not comfortable. The message is the piece that they need to hear, because we're talking about productivity and we're in service to the organization. But how do we convey the message in a way that's sensitive to the person who's receiving it? And the reason I say that it's team sport is if I have trained people within that organization to be the recipient of whatever's coming their way and to not personalize it. so they don't make it about them. And not that they intellectually don't, but that so that they train themselves emotionally that I have a boundary. Like when someone's doing this, I don't have to tell myself the story that they're doing this to me or that they're doing it because of me. I can look at them and see they're doing it because of them. Now, they're probably in a stress state. They're probably in a state of whatever it is. And as long as I'm adept at non-personalization, at going through this process of being able to make that distinction between what they're trying to say, so I can do it on my side as well as the recipient. Like the person who's doing the talking has a responsibility, but the person receiving, not only do they have the responsibility, but we want them to be in an environment where they're empowered and they can say, wait, I'm hearing that you're trying to tell me something, but I can't hear it in the way that it's being said. If that triggers you, they've now learned enough about fight, flight, and freeze because they've done a program, for example, like the one that I do. What they can say is, I want to hear what you're saying, but there's some triggering going on. And it's cool that there's triggering because I know that this is something that we all do all the time. Are you prepared to come back to me when you're more regulated? And let's try this again, because then the message will go through much, much easier.
It sounds like great advice for romantic relationships as well. And I think that, yeah, the workplace is a great place to practice this and then also transfer it to your personal relationships for sure. I'm struck by a lot of the similarities that the coaches at Create Magic at Work utilize with this, questioning what's really true here, reframing the story in your mind. And some of the skills that we teach are how to be a calming and healing presence, how to notice when your ego is triggered, and do some different techniques to shift back into your higher self, or sort of all of the same things. So it feels like it's a similar thing. And I love that we've talked about psychological safety for a lengthier period of time because it's been mentioned here and there on the show. I want to shift a little bit, and I'm curious about your book, Learning to Love, that you published. Can you tell us a little bit about what inspired you to I'm sorry, to publish Learning to Love post?
Yeah. So there's an assumption that we're all really great at loving, and no one really questions it because we'd hate to think that we're crappy at loving. But there's a difference between what's generally considered to be love and this thing that I relate to called unconditional acceptance and love. So to go there, we have to go into the shadow and to understand that for every person's kindness, they have an equal amount of cruelty. For every person's generosity, they have an equal amount of stinginess. And what we learned at a very young age is that there's certain things that we are safe to express and will gain us connection and belonging and involvement within a group or within our family. But there are other pieces that we're not allowed to express. So we hide and we suppress and repress those parts of ourselves. The unconditional loving and acceptance is when we can hold both those reprehensible and disgusting parts of ourselves with the parts that are really easy to express. And so Learning to Love is one of the first books that takes this shadow concept that we've been talking about intensively since Jung came along and brought it into Western culture as a topic. But I don't know how many people are actually living in this reality of engagement with their shadow. So I wanted to be able to lead people through the path. How do you come into relationship with your shadow? And how do you find the least friendly parts of your shadow, the pieces that you find the most repulsive? And learn to say, I have this piece. I can't separate it from myself. It's inseparable from who I am, but I don't have to act on it. Can I love its existence? Because one day I might need it. One day my daughter may be threatened by something, and I'm going to need to be cruel, and I'm going to need to be impulsive, and I'm going to need to be violent to protect her. Or some other situation like that. So I want to be able to have access to those places, to those parts that most of my life I don't want to be showing people. People don't want to see those, and because we don't, like, we're not accepted into society if we're showing that all the time. That was the conversation that I have through the book.
Interesting. I love talking about shadow and shadow work, especially in the workplace. We could do a whole mini series on that. If someone's really giving you an emotional charge in the workplace, but your emotional charge is sort of like way out of bounds compared to what that other person is doing, maybe there's some shadow there to take a look at, would be one way I would think about it. Okay, so if you could give all of us the one important thing you want us to know about psychological safety in the workplace, what would you say to us?
Pay attention to this triggering into fight, flight, and freeze. The person who is doing the triggering, they're in fight, flight, or freeze. If we can shift our attention from the effect of what they're doing, this is what requires compassion, and imagine that they're in distress. If I can alleviate their distress or address the fact that they're distressed, they stop doing the behavior that's causing harm to the people around them. So how can I shift from the victims to what we would call the perpetrator and see that the perpetrator is a victim too? And that compassionate game is kind of the piece that psychological safety rests on. That's the foundation.
Very good. Okay, it is time to pull a card for everyone listening from the Create Magic at Work journal prompt card deck. This is a message from the universe for everyone today. Let's see what we get. I'm using it. I have the deck in a app on my phone from Deckable. You can have like 100 card decks in your pocket. Let's see what we get. Okay, we got innovation. I honor imaginative ideas by writing them down. I honor imaginative ideas by writing them down. I think this is a really profound affirmation because this came up at the end of last year. This is a deck of 33 cards. This came up towards the end of last year when we were talking about AI and getting back to the humanity of just having your handwriting on a piece of paper, like the human piece of that. Philip, for you and in regards to our conversation today, the question, one of the coaching questions on the journal prompt card is, what ideas for progress have I been overlooking? So, what are some recommends that you have to help people have ideas for progress or that they might be overlooking? Maybe with this psychological safety piece.
Yeah. You know what? The place where my intuition takes me is to fear. Like, to what extent can we discern? Because we're feeling fear all the time. I'm afraid that I'm not going to make it on time. I'm afraid that someone's going to say something. I'm afraid that my work's not good enough, or that it's too good, or that someone will feel threatened by it, or whatever it is. So cruising around that awareness of what fears, how my fears are playing into my life, and making friends with that fear, so that I can kind of, I am having the picture of being able to get on the horse and ride it instead of being trampled by it. I want to be engaging my fear and be able to listen to the things coming through as fears. So I can say, do I really need to be afraid of that? And that opens the door. If I'm not afraid, then I have the freedom to express and be creative.
I love that. I love that. Thank you for sharing that. So, you have a really cool psychological safety training coming up. So, for everyone listening that wants to bring this into their leadership and into their workplace, how can they connect with you to learn more about that and the rest of your work?
Yeah. So the first place that I would love to send people is to Advantages of Mediation, not meditation, Advantages of Mediation.ca. And start off over there. And my training, all of the work that I'm doing can be found either on that site or on another site that it links to, which is my behavioral loops, more counseling side on a different site. So go to advantagesofmediation.ca, and it's very easy to schedule a call with me to talk to me about what it is that I'm doing. It's not a huge company. It's just me and the people that I hire to do work. And I'm always open to having conversations with people and helping them find ways where they can use what it is that I'm doing to support their progress and to support harmony in their workplaces and elsewhere, families, wherever it is they need help.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you for doing the work that you do. And for everyone listening, don't forget to click on the show notes. There's so many resources for you in the show notes of every episode. A lot of them are complimentary. So don't forget to check out the show notes when you listen to an episode of Create Magic at Work. Philip, thank you so much for being a guest today. And thank you for sending some magic to everyone.
I so appreciate the conversation with you, Milan, and look forward to our next conversations. Ciao for now.
I want to thank each and every one of you for coming back every week to listen to a new episode of Create Magic at Work and really helping to support and advocate for healthy leaders, workplaces, and lives for all of us. If you want any information on how to connect with me, click on the link in the show notes. You'll get access to all of the social media links for Create Magic at Work. Stay following along for more amazing episodes where we help you improve productivity and profitability in the workplace and decrease stress. Sending magic to everyone, and see you next time.